Hello, welcome back to another video. This one's a little bit different to my usual ones because I'm going to be testing out these pens right here. They are the Ohuhu, which I always find fun to say. The Ohuhu. They sent me 2 sets. Oh, I should also probably say I did get sent this stuff for free, but of course all my opinions will be my own. I will be casting my own judgment on these pens. I was really excited when they reached out actually because I'd seen quite a few videos. I know these have been making the rounds on YouTube. I've seen quite a few people who I watch make videos about them, and they always have very good things to say about them. Now, you might, if you're familiar with my art, might be thinking, since when do I use alcohol markers? Basically never. But that's kind of why I'm excited to give them a go. I have decorated the desk with my usual kind of art, which couldn't be further away from alcohol markers, to be honest. I do collages, mixed media, I paint little characters. Where's something else? Yeah, I paint with watercolours and gouache and coloured pencils. I use a lot, and I use these little crayons a lot. And my main thing I would say is collage. So I'm interested to see, first off, I'm going to use these how they're supposed to be used, although there's no rules to how you're supposed to use them, but how most people use them. I'm going to try and do a drawing using just these, layering up the pens, kind of what most people would do. And then I'm going to try and see if I can find a way to create collage textures with them, or find a way to incorporate them into my actual process, because when I'm collaging papers, a lot of the time I will use pencils and crayons to slightly change the colour of a piece of paper or to add extra texture, and I think these could be really handy to do that, because with pencils and crayons you get a lot of texture. Obviously when you're colouring you get a lot of like grainy kind of texture with them, whereas with these you get, I imagine, quite flat, really solid blocks of colour, which might come in really handy for collage. So that's my introduction. I haven't opened these at all. Well, I've unzipped them, but I haven't taken a single pen out. I haven't tested them, and I've had them for a while, but I've been waiting so I can get my genuine first reactions for this video. So, I mean, this just looks very pretty. These are the pastel set, and I mean, I did have a little bit of a nosy. These ones have, I don't know the official term, this is called a bullet nib, I do believe. So this one just has bullet nibs, and then this is more like a kind of what you'd see in a highlighter. So that's all of these. And then in this set, these ones are slightly thicker, and they have what's called a brush tip. So that kind of looks like a brush, and I mean, I don't really want to touch it because I get it all over my hands, but that I imagine will be kind of bendy, and you can get different line widths with it. I think I'll start off by just doing a colour swatch where I'll test every single pen just to see what the colours are like, and then I'll try and do some blending between colours, because I know with alcohol markers, if you've never heard of alcohol markers, so there's normal felt tip pens which are water based, but these are alcohol based, which basically means you can layer them and layer them and layer them, and it's not going to tear the paper up, and they layer really well, because obviously with normal felt tip pens, like water based pens, they will rip the paper up if you keep on layering them on top. So I'll do a little swatch sheet on these guys so I can see all the colours. Do a little time lapse of it. Okay, I suppose let's get filling in these little sheets. Okay, I'm going to be voiceover in for a little bit now. So here I am filling in the little swatch card. I thought I'll do this for the video, but I don't like, well, this is what I thought at the time. I thought I'll do it for the video, but do I genuinely think I'll use this piece of paper? Probably not, but I'll eat my words, because when I was making, the art that I made in this video, I was looking at these little sheets all the time. They come in really handy. I'd say the colours are 80% accurate to what the actual colour is on the pen lid. I'd say on most of the pens the colour is slightly darker than what it shows on the pen, like the colour on top of the lid. But there are some where like the colour's bang on, but for most of them I'd say the colour is slightly darker when you actually draw with it. So that's why it's good to refer to the sheet instead of the actual lid of the pen, because the colour is slightly different. So the first set I was testing all the colours out on was I should probably look at what this is actually called. I'm just going to refer to it as the main set with all the kind of more brighter colours. This set on its own is really missing lighter colours. Like even the lightest colour in this set I wouldn't say is that light. So having this in combination with the pastel set, I'd say works really well, because the pastel set is my preferred set. I think it's really pretty. For the majority of the art I was making in this video, I'm used like 80% purely like pastel pens from that set, but that just depends on your personal preferences and like what colours you like to grab. I personally like the more like muted pastels, kind of earthy colours, which obviously you're going to get in the pastel set, but then in the main set you get much brighter and darker colours, which I don't, naturally gravitate towards, but that's just me. I do think if you had the pastel set on its own though, you would be kind of missing those darker colours. So each has their pros and their cons. I've been testing out these markers, and originally it was just going to be a quick little test, and then I was going to do a proper piece which I was going to film, but my quick little test turned into something that I actually really like. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to carry on with this, draw the whole face, film the rest of the process, and then we'll go from there. So originally I was just testing it out in this sketchbook I have, but I really don't think this is the best kind of paper to use with it. It's just some really cheap sketchbook I have. So then I got out my proper this is proper alcohol marker paper. It's really thin, but it's just what I have lying around. So then I moved over to this sheet, and I think you can tell, like, I think the paper really makes a big difference. So these are the exact same colours. I mean, I don't know how well it's showing up on camera, but on this paper the colours were a lot darker, whereas on this they're more accurate to what they actually look like. So depending on the paper you use will like change the colour of the pen slightly. So I picked out a little colour palette. I just went through these little sheets, and the colours I'm using are Cotton Candy, Light Salmon Pink, I think I'm using these three, so Antique Fuchsia, Salmon Pink, and Cotton Candy. And Lavender Mist. I love this shade of blue. This is my favourite shade of blue. And then on here I'm using Grey Red. And I think that's it from this sheet. Oh, there you go. That's all. So these are all the ones that I'm using from the pastel set. And then from the normal set, I don't know what else to call it, I'm using these ones here. And then for the pencils, I'm just using my Faber-Castell Polychromos. I have loads of colours to choose from. I've just picked out these three. This is what I sketched with. I did a very light sketch to start with a very faint bit of shading, and then drew the whole thing with the pens, and then just for the last final touches I went in with these two pencils here to just add a little bit more shadow where I wanted it. I think the combination of these pens with pencils works really well. Like, it almost looks like if you didn't see the pen outlines on the outside, like it almost looks like watercolour, like I've painted it. But no, it's the pens. I am actually really enjoying the chisel nib. I thought the brush tip would be my favourite one, but I really like using that to draw with, to just like quickly block in the shapes and kind of get the angles of the face in. I'm really enjoying that. I think I'll just block in the rest of the face, and I'll just do that off camera because it's not very exciting, and then I'll start filming once I start using the pens. I couldn't be more impressed with these pens, and I'm being completely honest. My opinions haven't been swayed by anything, and I was going into this, like, I'll be honest with you guys, I was going into this thinking, I'll use these pens for this video and test them out, but I don't realistically see myself using them that much, like in my day-to-day art. But having used them for this video, it's like revolutionised, first off, my portraits. I mean, I know I really don't paint portraits that much anymore. Well, basically never. But if you remember, if anyone's been following me for a while, portraits used to be my main thing. Like, I drew portraits and only portraits for like a solid 3 years. I used to do portrait painting, oil paintings. I was actually on Portrait Artist of the Year a few years ago. I got into the final 3 in my round, which was quite the achievement. Anyway, so I used to be really into portraits, but I haven't done it in a very long time because obviously I'm more into illustration now. I want to be a children's illustrator. When I was starting this phase, first off, number one, I was scared because I haven't drawn a face in like a year. So I was thinking, oh gosh, I'm going to be really rusty. It's not going to turn out very well. But then using these pens almost felt like I was painting, which was a really nice feeling, especially with the chisel nib. Well, usually when I paint not an oil portrait, if I cast my mind back to all those years to when I did oil painting, I would always use quite a square brush. So the square chisel nib was like I was using a brush, and just the way it layers, it was like the feeling of watercolours almost, with how it was layering, but 1,000 times easier because the colours were already there and I didn't have to mix colours. And just being able to layer down the colours on top of each other was so satisfying. You can see in this these clips how I did it was I started with the lightest shade. I basically had my watercolour brain on, and I was starting with the lightest colour. And what's good about these pens is the tonal range you can get from just one pen alone is like really big. So you can use the same pen but then get a really dark colour or a really light colour depending on how many like layers you do with it. So I was building up layer by layer, and I was just having a really fun time. I really was. And then the final pop of coloured pencil at the end like really brought these together. You could do the whole piece in the pens. Personally, for me, I like adding detail with the coloured pencil because number one, it adds a little bit of texture and it kind of blends things together nicely, and number two, I just think it's a little bit easier to add the final details in with pencil. One thing I did find with these pens which was a little bit annoying, and this could be completely down to the paper I was using, I was kind of switching between, so I'd do a bit of pen and then I'd do a bit of pencil, and I'd do a bit of pen, do a bit of pencil. That really wasn't the best way to do it. What I should have done all the pen layers first to the point where I was like really happy with all the pens and how it was looking, and then done all the pencil afterwards, because trying to put the pen, like draw the pen on top of the pencil, especially in areas where the pencil was quite like thick, that was quite a struggle, and it started to almost like pool on top of the pencil, like the pencil had created like a barrier between the pen and the paper, so it was like the ink of the pen was just settling on top of the pencil rather than absorbing into the paper. And you can't really tell in the clips that I was recording because I had the camera at a certain angle so that you couldn't see it, but at very specific angles on this piece the pen looks quite shiny because of like how the layers were building up on top of the pencil. Now that wouldn't have happened if I'd have done all the pen first and then added the details on afterwards in the pencil. Basically, if you've got a really thick layer of pencil, the pen isn't going to really absorb into the paper. If you have a little thick like layer, it's fine, you don't have to worry about it, because you might have saw my sketch at the beginning, well, I did quite a bit of shading really lightly in pencil, and that was completely fine to draw on top of, but when I kept building it, it got to a point where the pen was like, no more, I cannot go through this paper. So that was something that I learned. Doing this hair was so satisfying. Usually I hate drawing hair. It's the worst part. It's always so time consuming and tedious and hard to understand the way the hair moves and getting the shadows and all the highlights right on the hair. It's always been a pain. But with these pens, like I got this hair done in, I want to say like 20 minutes. Maybe a bit longer, I can't really remember, but like doing this hair just zoomed by. It was so quick to do the hair. It just was like really intuitive to do like the strokes of the hair with the pen, and then I just added a little bit of detail with pencil to add a few like flyaway hairs, and it just came together really nicely in the end. So that is the finished face. Couldn't be more pleased with it, to be honest. I was quite shocked after I'd finished it. I was really like proud of myself because, well, I went into it being a little bit scared because I hadn't done portraits in so long, so it was like reassuring to know that actually I still have this skill. Anyway, now moving on to something which couldn't be further away from what I just did. I wanted to do some art which is more like something I do now. I want to be a children's illustrator, so my illustrations aren't usually realistic portraits. Like I said right at the beginning of this video, I do mainly collage and the cute little characters. Anyway, I've recently gotten really into crocodiles, which is a bit random, but I just think they're such interesting looking creatures that you can draw in a variety of ways and have it still look like a crocodile. I think they've got fun shapes and you can add a lot of texture to them. Anyway, so I've been doing loads of crocodile sketches in my sketchbook. I drew them a while ago, actually, like a couple of weeks ago, because I'm planning this big crocodile illustration. Anyway, I thought I would do a little practice piece of a tiny little crocodile, because in my head the illustration I want to do is going to be this big thing that will take a lot of time, and the crocodile's going to be huge and have this like girl kind of sat on its belly. That's a different thing. But this was just a test piece, because I want the crocodile to be filled with loads of textures, and usually I make my collage textures through just painting with acrylic paint onto just plain old printer paper, and that's how I make 99% of my collage textures. But I am kind of getting the itch to explore different textures, because I just feel myself using the same textures again and again and again, and I'm like, where's the variety? You know, I want to get more variety in my textures. So I thought I would use these pens to make collage textures. So here I am, just filling a big sheet of A3 with loads and loads of textures, trying to think about the scales of the crocodile and making like fun shapes that kind of mimic the scale of the crocodile. Filled the sheet full of all these different textures, layering up the pens. Obviously they layer really nicely, and I love how you can see the colours merging into each other. I can definitely see myself using these moving forward with my collages. Just to add a bit more variety into my textures, and also you'll see me a little bit later on use the pens to slightly change the colour of a piece of paper that I'd already painted, because I have, if you've seen my videos, you'll know I have a huge folder, 2 big folders filled with years and years worth of paper that I've painted. So when I'm doing my collages, I have every colour under the sun, and I can just pull from this folder and get making. But sometimes you just don't have the right colour. What I like to do usually when I don't have the right colour, but I have something that's almost the right colour, is I'll just grab a pencil or a crayon and I'll just scribble on top of it until it's the colour that I want it to be. But then when you do that, it kind of changes the texture of the paper. You get like a pencil texture, which sometimes is nice, but a lot of the time I don't really want a pencil texture because it takes away from the texture of the paint. So you can see me using the pens to just slightly change the colour of the paper, and it does it in such a subtle way where you can't tell it's even there because it adds such like a flat block of colour. I just think I will definitely be using these pens moving forward to slightly change the colour of textures. Hopefully that was interesting to you guys, that ramble, because I know a lot of you guys follow me because I collage and you like collage as well, so I wanted to make sure I got a bit of collaging into this video to show how these pens can be used to do that. And I know that the main purpose, most people use them like I did with the portrait, but moving forward I'll probably be using them mostly to collage with. And I have actually popped the pastel set in my little art trolley next to my desk, and that's quite the compliment because that's where I put all my favourite art supplies that I use like on the daily. So the fact that I've put them in that trolley means hopefully I'll be reaching for them on the regular and using them to make loads of textures and do bits and bobs. To summarise, I really enjoyed these pens. I will link them in the description if you want to nosy at them. It was nice to just get outside my comfort zone and try something new. I think the crocodile could have turned out a little bit better. I think looking back I should have done the crocodile bigger, because I was trying to squeeze so much texture into a really small space, whereas if I would have done the crocodile a little bit bigger, I would have had more space to really show off the texture of the pens. But for my first attempt at trying this out, I think it went really well. I will be giving this another go, I'm sure in the future, trying to do it a little bit better. Really like the face. That's my favourite thing that I've made this video. Although the crocodile is cute, it's just, I wish it turned out a little bit better. Not that it's bad, it's just, there are improvements that could have been made. Anyway, I'm rambling. I hope you've enjoyed this video and enjoyed seeing me play around with these pens. I'll have a video coming out soon, fingers crossed, where I'm going to show how I make prints, because I've never really showed that, like how I make, edit and print and like make prints for my shop, so that hopefully is going to be a nice video. I do have a Patreon where you can see lots of updates about my art, which I don't really share anywhere else. There's extra videos on there, and there's a monthly print. I think I've said it all. I hope you've enjoyed watching, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.